Hi everyone. So I wanted to go ahead and make a video to address to you guys what's going on. I saw this, I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know about how big of a problem we had until I watched this clip that I'm about to show you. I'm also going to be putting on screen some images that may be disturbing to some viewers, so don't watch if you're disturbed by racism and violence. If you're a police accountability advocate, then you probably aren't too camera shy, or rather image shy. But I wasn't aware of how serious a problem we're facing here in our country, because of the way that things have played out. I thought it was all just kind of a slight problem with typical American racism. We just need to grow past it and move on and get better and be better. But that's not the case. I've come to learn now that we have systematically been infiltrated by white supremacists. The Ku Klux Klan, the neo-Nazis, they have learned their lesson. They got smart back in the 80s, and they realized that walking around with white sheets on and hoods over your head and burning crosses in the streets and people's lawns wasn't the way to gain power. It was actually pushing people away. There were moderate extremists, or rather moderate racists out there that were being pushed away by the extremists. So they rebranded. I didn't know that. I thought that racism, these extremist racists had grown up, had learned that blind hatred and bigotry isn't the answer. But I was wrong. I didn't know. Now I know, and I have a duty, a responsibility to share this with you. This is I'm sharing this as a commentary and an editorial on news. So this is fair use. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and play the clip now. Again, I'll be throwing up some images either during or following the news report, just to really help people see what we've been blinded to. Some of us more blinded than others. The African American community has always seen this, and they've always known what's been going on, but our military, our police, have been systematically infiltrated by white supremacists and neo-Nazis for the purpose of gaining training and positions of power. They've also infiltrated local government to force this racism on America. The alt-right is not an alt-right, it's a rebranding of the Ku Klux Klan. This is a big problem, and I didn't know about it, and now I do, and now I have to share it with every one of you. So here it goes. Thank you for tuning in and watching, and feel free to like, share, subscribe, share this video, download it if you can download it. I share it around with everyone. Thank you so much.
Tonight was a skinhead at 14 and a neo-Nazi leader by the time he was 16. He now devotes his life to helping people leave extremist groups. Please welcome Christian Picciolini. I enjoy saying your last name. Picciolini.
Like a peach.
Picciolini.
Like a peach.
You're like a peach.
Oh.
Okay, let's get into this. You've said that we have a homegrown terrorism epidemic in this country. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Since 9/11, more Americans have been killed on U.S. soil by white supremacists than by any other foreign or domestic terrorist group combined. Yet we still don't call it terrorism. We call it, fluffy words like white nationalism or the alt-right. Those are words that they've given themselves, by the way. Let's just call it what it is. It's white supremacy and it's white terrorism.
Yes. Sorry. I don't usually start applause breaks, but that's so true. It's their, I think you said this, they rebrand themselves, and that's dangerous.
They do, yeah.
It is what it is.
And actually, we started that process 30 years ago. We recognized we were turning away even average American white racists. Shaved heads and the swastikas were apparently too much for them. And we said, we need to look like them, we need to sound like them, and we need to be where they are. So we traded in our boots for suits. We went to college campuses, recruited there, got jobs in law enforcement, went to the military. And here we are 30 years later, and, you know, they look like Brooks Brothers.
That should not be a campaign for Brooks Brothers, but it did cross my mind. How does one become a skinhead at 14? Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. I don't do those referrals anymore. You know, I was a lonely kid. I came from a good family, but my parents are immigrants who came from Italy, and they worked really hard. And I was lonely and felt abandoned growing up. And one day, when I was 14, I was standing in an alley smoking a joint. It is not the gateway drug to white supremacy. Let me just say that.
No, this is not against weed, because weed is also the drug of peace. Sorry.
But America's first neo-Nazi skinhead leader walked up to me. He snatched a joint from my mouth, and he said, "That's what the Jews and the communists want you to do to keep you docile." I was 14. I didn't even know what a communist or a Jew was, and I definitely didn't know what the word docile meant. But it was the first time in my life that I felt like somebody was paying attention to me, and I wanted to belong. And in fact, most people that I've worked with to disengage from hate groups, they'll all answer the same thing when I ask them why did they join. Because they wanted to belong. They were marginalized, and that was the group that brought them in.
Yeah, I interviewed Megan Phelps-Roper, and she said a similar, and you're friends with her.
She's a friend of mine. She's great.
I remember her saying in that interview, like, these aren't bad people. They're people who, in a vulnerable time in their lives, were swayed by bad ideas.
That's true. And I think that that's the secret. The secret to stopping people from becoming extremists is to understand that in most cases, they're not monsters. They're broken human beings who are doing monstrous things.
What is the process? How do you do that? How do you lure people away from extremism?
Well, I don't tell them that they're wrong. I don't argue with them. I don't debate them. Instead, I listen. And I listen for those potholes. You know, what is it that deviated them down that path? And then I become a pothole filler. I get people job training or life coaching, tattoo removal, mental health counseling. And when they start to feel more resilient, when they're more confident about themselves, then they don't have to blame the other anymore. But I don't stop there. I challenge their ideology, and I introduce them to the people that they think that they hate. And the demonization that happens in their head, the prejudice, just starts to crack once they actually meet the people, because they start to humanize and they start to relate to them.
So this is a picture of you at Dachau giving a Heil Hitler. How did you eventually walk away from that life?
That guy looks freaked out right there. Just
He
realizing
does.
that. So it was '92 when that picture was taken, and I was in a band performing in Germany, singing racist music. How I got out was in '95. I opened a record store after having a son, 2 sons, and getting married at 19, and starting to question, you know, what my priorities were. Was I this hate monger, or was I, you know, a father and a husband? Was my community the one that I'd manufactured around me to boost my own ego, or was it the one I'd physically given life to? And I started to question these things, and then at the record store I started to meet people that I'd kept outside my social circle. Even though I was selling white power music, I also sold punk rock and hip hop, and I started to meet blacks and Jews and gay people for the first time in my life and have a meaningful dialogue. And I realized, gosh, they're more similar to me than I am with these folks who I've surrounded myself with.
I'm always inspired when people change with new information. They let themselves be changed. Okay, so when you hear the leaders of our nation speaking, what do you hear?
You know, people talk about dog whistles, you know, using code words to appeal to a certain base. I hear a bullhorn. I hear it loud and clear. So many of the things that are coming out of this administration are things that I used to say 30 years ago. But they're using slightly more palatable words. Instead of saying, you know, the Jew-owned media, now they call it the liberal media. Or instead of calling it the global Jewish conspiracy, they call it globalism.
with everything that Trump has done, I have to say, when he came out on Holocaust Remembrance Day and wouldn't mention Jews, I was shaken a little bit, because that was really loud.
Yeah. Or equivocating white supremacists to protesters of neo-Nazis.
Both sides.
Yeah. Good people on both sides, right? Isn't that what he said? Yeah.
Good potential people on both sides.
But see, here's the thing with that, Sarah, is there may have been people there that looked normal, but they've changed. They're not going to be marching with hoods and shaved heads anymore. And there were people there waving flags. But the people who were there, you know, for Confederate monuments, that's bull. They were not there for free speech. They were not there for Confederate monuments. They only march in areas where they know progressives live. That's why they marched in Berkeley, and that's why they marched in Charlottesville. They want to provoke Nazis or any extremists. They love two things: silence and violence. If we're silent, they grow, they fester. We sweep it under the rug, and then we, tell ourselves, "Oh, wow, I'm surprised that that exists." Rallies like Charlottesville have been happening for decades, every month across, the United States. And I hate to be fatalistic, but they also love violence, because when we are aggressive against them in a violent way, they use it as a victim narrative, and they use that to recruit. And they say, you see, we're not the haters, we're the ones who are hated. So do what they did in Boston, and 40,000 people should surround every Nazi rally and show them that we see them, we hold them accountable, but at the same time, we're going to offer them a lifeline. Come on out if you want.
Come on out, join us. Join us. What advice would you give us?
Because compassion is what changed me. I challenge your audience, go out there today, and I challenge you too, even though you do this already. Find somebody that's undeserving of your compassion and give it to them, because I guarantee you that they're the ones that need it the most.
Christian Picciolini, thank you so much. You're so special.
Alrighty, so I went ahead and you guys should have all just watched that clip. It's pretty disturbing stuff. So bear with me a moment. I took some notes here. I rewatched it myself just to really have some discussion afterwards. There was some really important key points that he spoke about there. Silence and violence. If we remain silent about the racism, about the abuse, they will flourish and they will multiply. It will become a bigger problem. If we are violent and we fight back against them, they'll play the victim. They'll say, look, we're just trying to be a good American, and these leftist liberal scumbags, and they make us out to be the bad guys. We're not bad because we want to make a better future for everyone, not just whites, not just the blacks, not just the Hispanics or the immigrants or the Native Americans. It's for everybody. This is one world that is suffering, that's dying, that's got a lot of problems. It's not just America, it's everywhere. So I had a little notification pop up. Okay, sorry about that. So the man that you saw in that video was Christian Picciolini. He's a former skinhead and neo-Nazi. As you heard him say, we hear these labels getting thrown around a lot. White nationalism, or the white nationalists, or the nationalists, or the alt-rights. But that's literally just their own rebranding. It's like, McDonald's changing their name to Happy Hamburgers. It's still the same company, it's just a different name. They changed their name from Ku Klux Klan and the neo-Nazis to the alt-right. It sounds a lot more moderate. And they did that for a very specific reason. As he mentioned, they did it to infiltrate the moderate conservatives. Now, I know that a lot of my viewers and a lot of the cop watchers and cop blockers and the police activists, a lot of you guys are conservatives. And I don't have a problem with conservatives. I don't have a problem with liberals. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I am me. I have my own beliefs, my own views, and my own feelings about society and policies and the world and government, and it's not something that can be just cut and labeled. It's a complicated thing. So they rebranded themselves to the alt-right. That way they can infiltrate into the moderates and the conservatives, and they can make them look bad so that the left fights back against the conservatives, and the conservatives say, well, I'm not a racist, so these other guys aren't racists either. They're just haters and hating us conservatives. And they're purposely sowing this dissent into American politics to create a division between Americans. It's scary. It's dangerous. It's a big deal. So, also you heard him mention that about 30 years ago is when this all started. They realized that putting on the shaving their heads and putting on the boots and the leather jackets and the suspenders, that was identifying them, and they could be seen and spotted. Oh, that guy's just a racist. Oh, that guy's just a KKK member. Or that guy's just a neo-Nazi. So they figured out that the best way to move forward was going to be to ditch the shaved heads, ditch everything, get a nice normal haircut, put on a suit. They went to college campuses and they started recruiting, and they sent new members into police and into the military to get training, to become more powerful, to gain training and weapon expertise, infiltrate the police stations so that they can use their authority to marginalize minorities, execute whenever they want, and they hide behind this badge, and they say, well, it's because I was afraid. But it's not. They're afraid maybe that they're going to get found out as a racist. That's the only thing that some of these police, not all police either, the problem is they know that we can't identify them. We can't find which ones are racists, which ones are good, which ones are bad. We don't know, and it's so dangerous and scary. So, you heard Christian Picciolini, Picciolini. I keep saying his name wrong, I'm an idiot. Picciolini. So you hear Christian Picciolini speak about it, and he says the best way to handle it is like they did in Boston. Now, as a native Bostonian, I am so proud to have seen what we did out in Boston. They surrounded the white nationalists, the white supremacists, just surrounded them. Didn't do anything, just surrounded them, and stood there with cameras on them and kept them in the spotlight. And that's what we're doing as auditors, as activists. We go out and we're filming these police, and we're doing the right thing. Stand up to them, record them, keep them accountable, expose them. When we see them, we expose them. I watched a video of James Freeman going to the police station with a photo from the body cam of an officer asking, have you seen this man? I think he's a fraud. I think he's faking. I think he's pretending to be a cop, and I think he's a murderer. Is he still on the run? Have you guys found him? Have you arrested him? I couldn't believe it. I was so proud of that. That was one of the best videos I've seen, because he's doing what needs to be done. But we need to push it further. We need to hold them even more accountable. We need more people with cameras. We need more Americans speaking out against them. We need more dissemination of information and less secrecy. We need to start voting people into office who are going to start changing the laws on the books to hold the government accountable and give the authority back to the individual, back to the people. I'm just looking over my notes here real quick. Another thing that they've been doing is they've been using this deception, pretending to be regular moderate conservative Americans, hiding their racism and burying it deep down inside them so they can blend in. They pretend to be leftists and they instigate violence. They pretend to be the Antifa They throw on their mask and they pretend to be an Antifa member and they instigate violence so that Antifa looks bad. They have agent provocateurs all over the place. They've infiltrated local politics. They've become judges and lawmakers, senators and congressmen. They're everywhere. And it's so scary because we can't identify them. They don't shave their heads anymore. They don't wear swastikas. They keep their racism buried and hidden. The only way we can expose it is one person at a time. Every one cop that we see killing a black person who shouldn't be killed, we need to start demanding that officer be fired, that officer be charged with murder, and that he be locked up in jail. We need to be a lot more demanding about what's going on in our government. We are the people. We, the people, are supposed to hold the power. V for Vendetta said it beautifully. The people should not be afraid of their government. The government should be afraid of the people. It's really hard because what they've done here was a systemic infiltration of our country to sow seeds of dissent and to muddy the water, to pollute the water, to create this invisible enemy. They dehumanize their opponents, calling them... I've been called a terrorist on my channel because I yelled at a cop, because I told him to shove it up his ass when he tells me shit to do, when I'm just simply walking down the street minding my own business, when I'm out taking photographs at night. I'm just taking pictures. I'm not breaking the law. I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't start yelling at a cop the second he walks up to me. I don't go, "Oh, fuck you, officer. Ah, fuck you." No. I said, "Evening, officer." "Evening. What's going on?" "I'm just taking pictures." "What's your name?" That's the end of it. I'm done. I'm not playing your game. I'm not a terrorist. I don't want anybody to be hurt. Ever. What I want is a better future for my kids. I have 3 kids that are going to grow up. I have a president in our White House who uses the terms, instead of saying, "Oh, the Jew-controlled media," he says the liberal media. He calls it fake news. He sows these seeds of dissent, just like Christian explained. It's everywhere. We don't know. Is Trump actually a racist? Is he a white supremacist? I don't know. I can't attest to that. I don't have the information. Based on what he's saying, I'd say yeah. I think he's a white supremacist, and I'm afraid for what's coming in the future. He's denying climate change. He's denying, the police brutality. We all see it on TV every day. The images that flashed after that clip and during the clip that popped up. The images I'm gonna flash after this. It is clearly evident, but it is overlooked. And we need to stop turning a blind eye to all of it. We need to all work together to do more, to hold the police accountable, to hold our governors accountable, to hold our judges accountable. We need to affect real change. If we don't, we might lose this war. A war that we never realized we were fighting because we were too busy arguing with each other about whether there's really a war going on. This was a long video, and I really appreciate anybody and everybody who stuck through it. If you hang on just a few more minutes, you'll see some images. I'm going to kind of flash them up as a little montage. And then also, if you check in the description, I'm going to have links to articles. That clip was from the Sarah Silverman show, I Love You, America. She does a really great job of trying to bring awareness. She speaks honestly, candidly, and openly about some serious issues and topics. So if you have a Hulu subscription, I recommend you go and watch her show. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and stay safe out there, guys.